Participation in here is like the first obvious connection. And so, no spectators. No spectators in Burning Man. You have this like communal decision making that connects to communal effort.
I think it does, but it also connects to this sort of radical self-expression. In that, like, individuals together make a community.
Yes.
But then the self-expression is like...
It's also this like critical questioning.
Okay.
You think?
How so?
Draw
Draw the line.
the line.
Maybe we should.
So critical questioning, because through questioning you are expressing yourself.
Okay.
And that's like a form of not minimizing what you know, or what you feel, or what you think. So like it's very much related to this idea of like feeling, thinking, doing.
I can see like the principle of immediacy of being like in the moment and undistracted from what's happening in the past or what's going to happen in the future, really connecting with this theory of praxis. The idea of like you should be doing what you think you should be doing
in that moment. And what's right for you.
With like clear decisions. And sort of
it's also, an action aspect. But then we have this as like action. So reflection and action is meaning would kind of be leave no trace, right? Because you're like planning on
having an impact.
Yeah, you're as you go to this event, you're thinking about how you're going to clean up after yourself, and how you're going to like not just leave no trace, but leave it better. So I think that, it's like reflective action of like if burners just went out into the desert and made a mess of things,
they wouldn't get the permit again.
So it's like, that's like,
to be.
It's very thoughtful, and it does create meaning and a unifying thing of like, so it's like preparing for, what am I saying? Like preparing for like future action. Or just reflecting for future action.
For future opportunity.
Yeah, so reflecting.
I think decommodification with its, it doesn't necessarily like, it attempts to be an equalizer in the way that like everyone should cover up all their logos or modify whatever name brand, like large things that they have, but I still think that it is, you know, at its face, attempting to empower the oppressed, but then there's also the idea of radical inclusion tying into that as well, because all of the voices make the choir, and that like everyone has an opportunity.
Yeah, and through decommodification, there's not separation of classes because there's no VIP or someone being able to purchase a better experience than someone else. Like it just levels that playing field, which
Everyone's
is empowering. Yeah, that's like, you know, even though people might bring different levels of things to the event, they, everyone's able to equally experience, you know.
And everyone is dusty.
And I think civic responsibility, what was I thinking? Civic responsibility has to do with education and practice,
Okay.
or education and politics.
I love how you're carefully not crossing through. And I'm just like, woo!
Yeah, and I think that civic responsibility can also apply to this teachers as students thing.
Okay.
Because everyone is, it's like you're all taking responsibility for your piece of how you fit into a community.
Okay.
And I think that there's like a piece of agency in that. But that, you know, like the civic responsibility is like acknowledging
Like the value that every person can
yeah,
contribute.
It's acknowledging our contributions and our like
Ability to learn from
Yeah.
others.
yes. But then and then as far as politics goes, I feel like civic responsibility is like the most political, and that's going to mean something different to every person. Of like, what is, you know, that's like maybe one of the most vague.
Civically.
Yeah, like what does that mean to be civically responsible? And I think different people interpret that differently. And that kind of comes from this piece of like that your teacher cannot teach you something without having some sort of political viewpoint or pre-existing. Yeah. And so to, you know, acknowledge that, but then to acknowledge that difference too, that you can be like, well, this is what you're teaching me, this is what you believe, but I have agency to, you know, still believe or act according to my own agency. Then, do you want to talk about conscientization?
Oh my goodness, yes. Let's see, what parallel? Well, that was about his belief that to propagate and create consciousness that was aware, or that knew that it could make an impact on the world. And I think Burning Man as a whole is this like great sort of capsulization of that. It's this huge petri dish wherein like, you know, people are giving each other these huge experiences, often with you know, large amounts of resources and large amounts of time and planning, but with the awareness that it's going to ripple out into the world. And I mean, like, we were just at Catharsis on the Mall, right, in DC, and just seeing like a museum dedicated to what Burning Man has like created for the world.
Seeing Burning Man in the Smithsonian on the steps of the White House.
Yeah, seeing that in the background, just seeing like how an idea like 35 years ago has suddenly become this thing based off of some dude, Larry Harvey's gift.
And this idea of gifting experience, gifting your thoughts, gifting what it is you have to share with the community, you know, gifting your consciousness in a way is interesting.
thoughts, experiences, and consciousness.
So it looks like, it's interesting how it's played out, but it kind of looks like radical self-reliance and the risk of naive activism actually are related. Aha, okay, what color do I want? Purple.
I know, I said let's change colors.
Yeah, so we're gonna go swoop,
Green.
swoop, and swoop. So with this, we want to say like radical self-reliance is connected to naive activism and how
Sparkle ponies come to be.
yeah, that there's people who don't necessarily attend Burning Man and take care of themselves, that they don't necessarily come and abide by the principles, that they can be reckless in their participation, and there's actually people who put the entire thing at risk because they're being reckless, because they're not like learning the principles and abiding, you know, by this communal participation. And so I think that that's
I should have put that one at the top.
like self-reliance is like the biggest risk that anyone can pose to the rest of the community if they don't do it well. Like for someone to become someone else's burden, which in, you know, naive activism, that's the biggest risk that can be posed towards activism, is people just reacting and not thinking and not planning, but not also, you know, someone going to the burn and not taking good care of themselves, whatever, and then blaming Burning Man for it instead of reflecting to be like, what could I have done differently? You know, how could I have acted differently in that situation?
Reflexive instead of reflective.
Ooh, yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Okay. So we did this little connection thing, and what could Burning Man learn? I mean, I guess we've kind of been talking about that the whole time, of like what Burning Man could learn from the application of these theories. Like we kind of drew the connections.
I think that Burning Man is sort of already in progress of adopting some of these, but I mean, when you look at it from outside of the playa and you understand like how many people are there who are CEOs or like these massive tech startup staffers, Google sending their CEO candidates out there, like how could Burning Man be more of an accessible thing wherein it doesn't require you dumping $2,000 to $30,000 for a week?
But at the same time, it's like opening those people up to like, you know, Burning Man is what it is because people are willing to gift large sums of money towards these huge art installations and art cars, and that it's done in such a way that everyone's a benefactor, but like no one is necessarily, there's no VIP separation of those who, you know, are contributing more monetary value in contrast with like physical sweat equity.
Sweat equity.
Because there's a lot of people who contribute sweat equity and show up on a low income ticket for like $150, and then there's people who, you know, are able to contribute a, you know, high price $1,200 ticket just because they can. I think that that's an interesting relationship of how it can like level that classism in a way that's not like they don't get anything special for that extra ticket. It's just something they
could do.
They voluntarily do, and just knowing that they can get a ticket. Is there anything else you notice of connections or?
No. I feel like this is synaptic.